because there are indications that that is the case, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So these are the 2 points I wanted to mention before we move on about the signs of Judgment Day. So to summarize, so that we're on the same wavelength inshaAllah ta'ala, to summarize the last 4 or 5 lectures in 2 paragraphs. Towards the end of times, after all of the minor signs have basically finished, there will come a series of massive wars that will engulf the world. There will be a lot of wars, in particular in the regions of the modern Iraq and the modern Asham. There will be a lot of wars. And this will culminate in a 3-way civil war between the ummah. 3 parties will be fighting between the ummah. And this civil war between the ummah will eventually reach the Hijaz province and eventually reach Mecca itself. So the wars between Muslims will envelope that region, and the Holy Lands itself will become involved. During this time frame, a person will rise up that people are looking to for leadership. He lives in Medina at this point in time. And for whatever circumstance, he will run for his life to Mecca. And he will not have any protection. And for whatever reason, one of the powerful of these triple armies will try to kill this person by sending an army to the Kaaba itself. And when they send the army to the Kaaba itself, that is when the miracle of miracles will happen, and the army will be destroyed without any human interference. At this point in time, it appears the Muslim ummah will recognize this person to be the Mahdi. Now the signs have been met. So it appears, even though nothing is explicit, that the ummah will no longer fight amongst itself. That the Mahdi will then unify the ummah. And in my reading and interpretation, and it's all ijtihad in the end of the day, that unification will not happen until the Mahdi. In fact, the Mahdi's main purpose is to unify the ummah. Because how can you now not believe in the Mahdi when the sign has happened and the Kaaba has been protected, in front of you? So the Mahdi will now take charge. And rather than civil war between the ummah, there will be wars between civilizations, Muslims and other civilization. And the ahadith mention at least 2 massive wars. The one of them with the Muslims and the Romans on one side and a third party on the other. So the Muslims and the Bani al-Asfar or the Rum will be on one side, and there will be a common enemy on the other side. And this will be a massive war, and the Muslims and the Romans will be victorious. Then, soon after this one, there will be inner fighting between the Rum and the Muslims, and there will then be yet another massive war between these 2 groups. Around this time, or shortly after, now the people, the Muslims know Dajjal is about to come, the signs are there. So anytime something happens, there will be rumors, Dajjal is out, Dajjal is out. And most of these rumors obviously will be false because he's only going to come once. And during one particular time frame, according to one narration, after the conquest of Constantinople, and this is slightly problematic as we're going to come to, the rumor will come that Dajjal has come. So they will come back to their base, and their base is where? Where will their base be? Damascus, Bilad al-Sham, overall, and Damashq, Bilad al-Sham. That will be their base, Bilad al-Sham. They will rush back to Damashq, and they will find out the rumors are false, and within a day or 2 or a short period of time, actually Dajjal will come. So when they find the rumors to be false, now Dajjal has actually come down. And once the Dajjal will come, he will spend, as the Prophet said, 40 days, if you want to interpret it literally. Because here's again, this is one of those ahadith, even the Sahaba were cryptic, mystified. What do you mean? Is that day a day, an actual year or whatnot? If you want to interpret it ala zahiri, upon its actual time, then in reality the Dajjal will be here for around 2.5 years. Around, sorry, not 2.5. A year and 2.5 months, a year and 2.5 months. If you want to say the first day is 1 year, the second day is 1 month, the third day is 1 week, and then the rest of the 37 days is 37 days. If you interpret it like that, then the Dajjal will be on this earth for around a year and 2.5 months. Not a too long period, but it will be the worst wars known to man. And nobody will be able to kill Dajjal, even though they might kill some of Dajjal's forces, as we said. But Dajjal himself will not be able to be killed. And after a year and 2.5 months, when the Mahdi is leading Salat al-Fajr in Damascus, in the Umayyad mosque, Isa will come down towards the end of times, and Isa will then lead Salat al-Fajr. Isa will come down at Salat al-Fajr time. He will tell the Mahdi to lead Salat al-Fajr, and then that army will, within a day or two, as soon as Isa comes, the Prophet said he will make for him like a spear makes for its target. He will rush towards the Dajjal. As soon as Isa comes down, after Salat al-Fajr, they will rush towards the Dajjal, and Damascus to Jerusalem in that time frame might even be done in an hour, or definitely within a day or two. So as soon as Isa comes, that tribulation will be gone with, because the Dajjal will be killed, and all of those who are still fighting at this point in time, if you are still fighting on the side of Dajjal, there is no hope for you. You will not be saved, because the signs are too clear, as we said. You have chosen darkness over light. You have chosen evil over truth. So there will be no hope for you. And there is a very interesting narration that some have made authentic, and I mentioned it briefly. I want to pause here and mention it again. This is a hadith in Abu Dawood and Muslim Imam Ahmad. And the scholars have differed, is it authentic or not? Shaykh al-Albani makes it authentic, and others make it slightly weak. The hadith goes as follows, narrated from Mu'adh ibn Jabal. عمران بيت المقدس خراب يثرب وخراب يثرب خروج الملحمة وخروج الملحمة فتح القسطنطينية وفتح القسطنطينية خروج الدجال. So a number of things are mentioned one after the other. Number one, the building up of the Bayt al-Maqdis is the destruction of Medina. He called it Yathrib. And number one. Number two, the destruction of Yathrib is the beginning of the civil wars, the Malhama, the Armageddon. Number three, the Armageddon is the beginning of the conquest of Constantinople. And number four, the conquest of Constantinople is the coming of Dajjal. Okay? Now, this hadith, if it is authentic, it raises the issue which is slightly problematic, and that is Umranu Bayt al-Maqdis kharabu Yathrib. The building up of Bayt al-Maqdis is the destruction or the demolition of Yathrib. And this is problematic insofar as the traditions mention, as we're going to come to, if not today, then next Wednesday inshallah, that Yathrib or Medina will be destroyed after Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So how then can, before Dajjal, Medina be destroyed? Do you understand the problem? Baytul Maqdis being constructed is the destruction of Yathrib. One way to interpret this is, firstly, what is the construction of Baytul Maqdis? Imranu Baytul Maqdis. This clearly means that Baytul Maqdis, Jerusalem, Aqsa, is becoming either one of two interpretations, either a civilization, pay heed in light of what is happening, or a Muslim civilization. Because Imran means to build. عَمَّرَ يُعَمِّرُ إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ عِمْرَانُ بَيْتِ الْمَقْدِسِ. The construction or the building or the civilization of Bayt al-Maqdis. It doesn't say by Muslims or non-Muslims. So either it is a generic building up of Bayt al-Maqdis, that land becomes a land of civilization, a land of strength, a land of power. And it is clearly in our times a land of whatever, however angry what is going on, we cannot deny. All you need to do is look at the top 100 Fortune 500 companies, whatever, how many are based over there, their economy, their scientists, whatnot, and also the number of people living there, and Allah knows best. Or we can say, Imranu Bayt al-Maqdis by the Muslims. And that's going to take place after the killing of the Dajjal. Either way, time frame is similar. That is going to signal the destruction or the kharab of Yathrib. Now, the only way then, if this hadith is authentic, is that we say the building up of Jerusalem will signal the beginning of the end of Medina, but not the actual end of Medina. Because the actual end of Medina will come towards the very end of times. So some things are happening that Medina will become empty and empty and empty. And this will begin with the construction or the Imran of Baytul Maqdis. Now, the destruction or the kharab of Medina is the Malhama, the Armageddon. That much is clear because the Mahdi is coming from Medina. His followers will come from Medina. The Prophet ﷺ said when the Malhama takes place, some of the best people on earth will leave Medina to go to Sham. So there's going to be civil war, and the Muslims realize we need to fight against Dajjal. So Medina will be emptied and emptied and emptied. And so this also makes sense. وَخُرُوجُ الْمَلْحَمَةِ فَتْحُ الْقَسْطَنْطِينِيَّةِ. The beginning of the Armageddon is the conquest of Constantinople. This means that, and this is my interpretation from 2 weeks ago and last week, the Armageddon, the Malhama, isn't just one war. It is a series of wars. Because the conquest of Constantinople is one of the wars of the Malhama. It's taking place within the Armageddon. So the Armageddon or the Malhama isn't just one battle. Yes, there will be the final battle, no doubt, between Isa and Dajjal. That is the end of the Armageddon. There will be one or two very big battles. Like the Prophet said, out of 199 will die. That is one of those battles. The Euphrates River will uncover its gold. That is another battle. All of these are some of the bigger battles. But in my interpretation of the hadith, and this is my ijtihad and I could be wrong, it doesn't appear that the Malhama is one battle. And this hadith proves it, because there will be battles after Constantinople, and yet the Prophet ﷺ is saying, خُرُوجُ الْمَلْحَمَةِ فَتْحِ الْقَسْطَنْطِينِيَّةِ. The beginnings of the Malhama is the conquest, will signal the conquest of Constantinople, and then the conquest of Constantinople, وَفَتْحُ الْقَسْطَنْطِينِيَّةِ خُرُوجُ الدَّجَّالِ, will signal the coming of the Dajjal. So Dajjal will come, then Isa will come, then Isa will kill Dajjal. As soon as Isa kills Dajjal, barely has a day gone, maybe even the same day, or they haven't even rested fully. That's what the hadith is. They have not even recovered. So we can say 3 days, 7 days, but definitely not a few months. Without even recovery, immediately Ya'juj and Ma'juj will be sent out. And that is when Allah will inspire Isa, that a group of creation, ibada li, and this is a very key phrase here, one of my creations have come out. Some of my creation. What are they? As we said, we don't know. There is no human power that can fight them. This is what the hadith says. Don't even think about fighting them. And as I said, this is very interesting, because even for Dajjal, Muslims are fighting his army. If people can fight the army of Dajjal, why can't they fight Ya'juj and Ma'juj? I talked about that last week. So Isa is told, go and flee with my followers, go with the righteous people and hide. And so they will hide for how long, we do not know. Until finally they're about to starve to death. And so Isa begs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. And that is when Allah miraculously deals with Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Firstly, by eliminating all of them instantaneously. One thing comes, whatever happens, something attacks them at the neck, and instantaneously, simultaneously, all of them are killed. Secondly, the Muslims come out, the stench is overwhelming, etc., etc. They make dua to Allah, so then Allah gets rid of their corpses as well. And so the earth is cleansed by a rain, by the birds, etc., etc. Now, let us begin from where we left off now. So now we are from where we left off. After Ya'juj and Ma'juj, there shall be a period of luxury and peace, the likes of which this world has never seen since the beginning of time. The amount of peace and luxury that will take place, our Prophet ﷺ mentioned that one rumana, one grapefruit or one pomegranate will suffice an entire tribe. And one shank of lamb will be eaten by an entire subdivision of a city. In other words, the earth will give like never before. And in one version, it says that the snakes will play with the toddlers, and the lions and the wolves. The wolves will play with the lambs, for example. Right? These phrases are found. What we see in this is that after all of that fighting, years and years of Dajjal and Ya'juj and Ma'juj and whatnot, and we don't want to be alive when that happens. Those that live through, Allah will give them some peace. And this is the sunnat Allahi fi khalqihi. Inna ma'al usri yusra. Fa inna ma'al usri yusra. Inna ma'al usri yusra. This is the sunnah of Allah. Those people that saw the worst of the worst, and we do not want to be amongst them. We should seek refuge in Allah from living to see Dajjal. Na'udhu billahi min fitnati Dajjal. We don't want to be around when Dajjal comes. We don't want to be here. But if those people that are here, and they manage to eke through those years of turmoil and trial, that generation, then they shall be blessed like no other generation has been blessed since the beginning of time. How long will this time frame be? Some hadith mention 7 years. And are these 7 years or another? Allah knows best. But there will be a few years. And this is proven by our Prophet ﷺ saying, Wallahi, he gave a qasam to Allah. You shall perform Hajj and Umrah to the Kaaba even after Ya'juj and Ma'juj. That's these years now. Now the fact that you're performing Hajj and is performing means there's more than one Hajj. For a few years, there shall be peace in this world. No fighting. No two people will fight one another. Can you believe? That has never happened since Habil and Qabil. Has never happened. But Allah will bless those people when they have seen how evil war is. For those years, no two people will ever have an argument. Khalas. Utter peace on this earth. Now, unfortunately, what we learn with that peace and stability, some people's hearts, or maybe the next generation that is born or whatnot, their hearts will become hard and lack iman. And we'll explain why in a while. But these years will be the best years of all of mankind, but we don't want to live to see them because we have to go through something to see them. And eventually, something will happen. Isa will either die or whatnot, or Mahdi will die. We don't know when, by the way. And by the way, there are legends found that Isa, we can say sallallahu alaihi wasallam for Isa, we can say rahimahullah ta'ala. All of this is allowed for Isa and for any righteous person, by the way. Isa, rahimahullah ta'ala, and sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no problem, shall, according to some reports, die a natural death and be buried in the hijr of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. Where do we get this from? By the way, this is not an authentic hadith, but there are such a hadith. Of them is the hadith of Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As, which is not authentic. I'm going to come to that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, ينزل عيسى بن مريم إلى الأرض. Isa will come down to this earth. فيتزوج, he will get married. ويولد له, and children will be born to him. ويمخث 45 سنة, and he will live for 45 years. He was taken up at the age of 33. So he will live till he's 45. So another 13 years or so. And this would make sense with all that we have said. ثُمَّ يَمُوتُ فَيَدْفُنُ مَعِي فِي قَبْرِي. Then he shall die and he shall be buried with me in my qabr. Then I and Isa ibn Maryam will stand up together, and between us will be Abu Bakr and Umar. Now, this hadith is reported in a number of very, very obscure books that none of you would have heard of. Ibn Abi Dunya mentions it, and Ibn al-Jawzi in his Al-Ilal al-Mutanahiya, and Al-Muntazam, and Al-Wafa, and all of them say that this hadith is very weak. It is very weak. Some of them say it is even munkar. So it's not an authentic, because there's a very well-known person in there by the name of Abdurrahman al-Afriqi, who was known to be a very weak narrator. So the hadith is not authentic. There is a narration in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, but it's not a hadith. Abdullah ibn Salam. Who is Abdullah ibn Salam? The ex-rabbi of Medina. He was the senior most rabbi of Medina when the Prophet ﷺ came, Abdullah bin Salam. There is a report in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. You can look this up if you want. It's a very famous book, Tirmidhi. You can find this at home. And I've always encouraged you, look up the books of hadith. Don't be shy to look them up and open. What do you lose? They're not going to bite you. Read them. Get connected to your tradition. Hadith number 3617. Abdullah ibn Salam said, who said? Abdullah ibn Salam, not the Prophet ﷺ. Abdullah ibn Salam said, it is written in the Torah, the description of the Prophet ﷺ. And it is written in the Torah, the description of Isa ibn Maryam, and the two of them will be buried together. Who said this? Abdullah salam. It is not a hadith. Is that clear? Where is he getting it from? His version of the Torah. It's clearly not around in our times, by the way, right? Because realize the Jewish Arabs of that time, they have a different tradition altogether. Their traditions and their calendar is different. We know this. Again, I'm going to my tangents here, but anyway, they are not connected to the mainstream Jewish diaspora that was alive at the time. They have been disconnected for a few centuries or a few decades, at least a century, and so their beliefs and their books are slightly different. And that is very interesting, because then we get a window into a preserved Judaism that didn't exist in Babylon or in other places in the world, or in Jerusalem as well. But apparently, Abdullah ibn Salam has some books handed down generation to generation that the rest of Jewish folklore doesn't have anymore. And in it, he is saying, I am telling you that Isa and Muhammad are going to be buried together. One of the narrators of this hadith, the third narrator from Abdullah ibn Salam, a tabi'i, he said, and there is still a space in the hijr of the Prophet that can accommodate Isa ibn Maryam. Now that is a fact. That is a fact. What is a fact? That in the room of Aisha, the three bodies are this way, and there is one portion that technically there is still space for one more body over there. That much is a fact. Whether it will be Isa or not, we say, what do we say? Very good. You guys are learning. Allahu A'lam. There's nothing authentic, but Abdullah ibn Salam is no joke. He is the chief rabbi, and he is saying, I'm telling you the two will be buried together. So Allah knows best. So perhaps Isa will die a natural death, and perhaps he will be buried in Medina, or perhaps that is not going to happen. Now what's going to happen with the followers of Isa, the righteous Muslims? This is where the end of time